fifth objective is to discover best practices, innovative concepts and tools that have the potential to transform our ability to identify, assess, mitigate, or eliminate the risk of serious injuries and fatalities.
The key issues in terms of the way we're approaching it with our breakout session is a two-pronged approach. We're taking a look at the planning portion of a job or a project, and how do you identify the risks at that point and develop into your plan mitigating factors to reduce that risk. And then on the other end, when we're about to do the work, either for a particular job or for a project, when the employee is going to do the work, what can we do to help them identify and plan at that point what those risks they might face and how they can address them at that point.
I think some of what we found to be most effective was the combining of best practices from other companies. There was a much larger focus on a global scale that we weren't anticipating coming in, so the majority of the companies had international operations as well. So the focus was the fatality prevention, but the forum grew to a global and a national, so it worked out to be much more effective.
We spent time looking at some of the tools and templates for best practices that folks had developed at their respective locations. Significant findings in the sense, I think we saw trends in approach. For example, non-routine tasks tend to introduce more risk than the routine tasks in a general sense. That doesn't mean there can't be high risk in a routine task, but the risk is magnified when it's a non-routine task. I think the other things we saw were that when you increase the influence of time pressure, adverse weather conditions, a lack of supervision for a high risk or critical task, the risk is going to go up.
I have to say that one of the influencing factors for me in my progress and the progress that we've had in my company is the fact that I was able to get to the forum 5 years ago. That was a big influencing factor. What we've seen different this year, there's been a tremendous change in the level of understanding of fatal events and some of the tools that are in place.
Now, each month, the end of the month,
what we generated, of course, was the best practices. The information sharing process led to a culling of ideas and activities and tasks and things that different participants are doing. Put that all together in a best practice, which we'll then share with the larger group. So I think that transfer of learning was really critical, and I think we did that very well.
No one company does everything right, but every company does something really, really well. And what I call pockets of brilliance, where you go out and you see, and part of our job in our business, and I think part of what happened at this meeting, is that these pockets of brilliance were brought out and shared. And I think there are things that came out at this meeting that's going to save lives. I know it.
The last objective is to identify areas of future safety research and public policy that could drive significant improvement in the ability to predict and prevent fatalities.
I'm a researcher as opposed to a practitioner, but I came away with a lot of ideas for research. I'm not a safety officer or anything like that. I'm a person who does research on safety and causes of accidents and things like that. So I got a lot of ideas. I got like 5 or 6 pages full in my notebook. So that's a good meeting. Usually I come away with 1 or 2 if I'm lucky.
Methods of going after specific hazards. For instance, hazard associated with falls from a truck, and how different organizations have gone about that. Hazards associated with a first break on whenever you break into a line for maintenance. How do you know that that line truly is de-energized, that there's not pressurized material waiting for you on the other side? Different practices that go about that to try to control the risks associated with that.
And sometimes it's like, well, it's contrary to my point of view. And sometimes it's like, well, it's interesting, I should have considered that in the scheme of things, and maybe in the future, based on what I'm learning here, I can revise the work and amend the work and actually make it better in the future.
But I don't know why we're not teaching kids in freshman high school this. so that they make better decisions all the way through their high school and college career. And then when they dump into the workforce, they already understand these things. Or worst case, they teach safety professionals, you know, here's the performance modes that people do. So when you're out there, you see someone up on that scaffold and they're doing something, you look at it as a safety violation. But if you don't know their mental model, you don't know whether they're violating, deviating, it was an error, it was intentional, it was no intentional, whether there was willfulness involved, or even if they understand or recognize the hazard, until we have that conversation.
It wasn't anything that really shocked me, other than the wealth of information and the work that has been done to progress fatality prevention. And it is an emerging, I guess, topic. You don't see this topic being presented too often at other safety conferences. So the fact that this was dedicated just to fatality prevention was a focused meeting. It wasn't a large group, so therefore everybody was a captured audience, and you could very easily network.
Through the collaboration of participating organizations, the 2012 Fatality Prevention Forum brings the safety sciences field one step closer to their ultimate goal: 0 fatalities.
Well, this is a wonderful conference, really and truly. I mean, this is a conference that brings a lot of different people together on a common theme that's of interest to everybody.
We all need to learn from each other. We are from all over the country, and because of that, we don't often have the opportunity to talk to each other. We talk to folks in our plants, in our organizations, but we don't often cross-populate with each other. So the value of these kinds of sessions is that we share that information with each other. We learn from each other.
And I deal with companies on these issues on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to leave here learning something and stuff that I can put to use right away.
Helps us all to, again, work together to drive that fatality to 0.